Good morning. Welcome to CSS lecture by Dr. Gajanan Vaishnav, Yash Institute of Pharmacy. So today we will be learning another aspect of our web page development, and that is CSS. CSS actually stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So it describes how your HTML elements are to be displayed on the screen or in other media. Now remember that although HTML was developed as a language for developing web pages, but it has got very limited options of developing a style or background colors or making the web page attractive. So what HTML can maximum accomplish, what it can do easily is to just make and display a web page. That's all. But if you go for commercial web pages, they need to be quite attractive, they need to be quite colorful, and we need a lot of choice of fonts and styles in that. And all these things are not in the capability of HTML. So there is an extension of HTML, and that is called as the cascading style sheet. So this is as per the worldwide consortium on internet, W3C. Uh, this CSS is considered as another language. So this language, it saves us a lot of work. So you can control the layout of multiple web pages just by changing one single style sheet. So that is the crux of the CSS, right? So external style sheets are stored in CSS files. Now you can see here, one single HTML page can be displayed in multiple styles. So here you can see that this is my web page, my home page, and here you can see that this is a particular green style, and there is a particular arrangement in which the style sheet is shown. But the same web page can be displayed with in a fraction of a second using another style sheet, and it will simply look totally different. So why we have to use it? You have to use it because your web pages design layout variations. You might want to do it at any times, and if you are having say series of 10 web pages which are linked to each other. Now typically website will contain 10 to 15 different web pages, and these web pages, they need to have a uniform outlook so that you actually present a professional image. So what we have to do is we have to just make a style sheet in CSS, and we have to attach it as a link to the HTML document, so that what will happen, the moment we make some changes in style sheets, immediately all our 10 web pages will change. So that is the use of CSS. So it has solved a big problem, because HTML was never intended to contain tag or formatting a web page. HTML was simply it was created to describe the content of a web page. For example, if I say tag h1, this is heading, close tag h1, or this is paragraph, it is between the paragraph tags, then it is simply supposed to do that. But the moment I want more things in H1, for example, I want red text in H1, what I do typically is I add the red color as an attribute by using a font. Now, all these things are actually quite tedious, and when you want to make large scale changes in your website at once, it becomes very difficult to go to every line and change the code. So, CSS comes to your help. So, with the external style sheet file, we can easily change the look of the entire website by changing just one file. Now, how CSS code is written? There is something called as CSS syntax. Syntax means how to write a code. So, in the CSS syntax, typically the code is written in the following way. First of all, we write the selector. For example, we want to apply some style to the heading H1. So heading H1 in itself is an indication that this is the first level of the font in the HTML. So whenever I am saying HTML H1, I am using it as a selector outside a curly bracket. So whatever my style sheet is there, it will be applied to whenever I put the selector H1 in my code. So here, whenever I am writing H1, my HTML syntax says that this whatever is labeled with H1, it should come in color blue, and the font size should be 12 pixels. So here we can say that the colon is there. So before the colon, I am writing the property, and next to the colon, I am writing the value. So this is called as a declaration block. So there are two blocks here, selector block and declaration block. So in the declaration block, the sequence is property, colon, value, semicolon. Similarly here, font dash size, this is another property. And again colon, then value, unit. Now you here the unit is pixel. Now remember that the value and the unit, they should not be separated by spaces. and then again semicolon. So every declaration in CSS will end up with a semicolon, and say every declaration block will be enclosed in curly brackets, right? So the selector points to the HTML element we want to style, and the declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons. So each declaration includes a CSS property, name and a value, right? CSS declaration always ends with semicolons, and the declaration blocks are surrounded by curly braces. So here is an example. Now in this example, what I have done is the selector here is P, and in the curly bracket you can see the property color, the value given is red, and then property text dash align, and the value given is center. So wherever I am coding my this in my HTML document, and I am writing P as a paragraph tag, then I am applying the style sheet that is defined for P, and this is the style sheet that whenever there will be a paragraph, the color is going to be red and the text alignment will be center. Now, so there are different selectors in CSS. So here they are used to find or select the HTML element based on their element name, ID, class, attribute and more. So there are four types of CSS selectors. You can have element selector, ID selector, class selector or grouping selector. Now we will see how these selectors work. First of all, ID selector. The ID selector uses the ID attribute of an HTML element to select a specific element. For example, the ID of the element should be unique within a page, so that the ID here used is to select one unique element. So directly the example we will see. I am defining here the ID selector hash para1. Now this hash para1, it is very less chance that I am using it as a tag in HTML. So if I simply want it to be a unique thing in my web page, then what I will do is I will use this hash para1, and here we can see what is the definition, the description block of this CSS element. Text align property, value is center and color is red. So wherever this hash para1 will appear, then the text alignment will be center and color will be red. So when I'm going to use this hash para1, I'm going to use it wherever I want this type of center alignment with red color. So let us actually perform a simple type of HTML code here. So what I'm going to do is, so let us directly use this ID selector here. So what I have done here is I have opened a notepad page, and in the notepad I am going to start coding my HTML. So first code will be HTML. Definitely we have to close this tag, and this tag will be closed by /HTML. Now we have seen while learning HTML that there are two parts of the HTML document. One is the head element, so I need to close head element also, and another is the body element. So I will close it with /body. So what we are going to do here is we are going to use the head element to include our CSS. So this will be a called as, so what I'm going to do, I'm included the style element here. So the tag uses style. Style means it is going to include a CSS style sheet. So it will be closed with /style, and here I'm going to define my ID selector. For example, hash para1, and then I need to give my declaration block. So in the declaration block I will write color red, and text align center. And then I will close this declaration block, and my style element is completed. Now what I have to do is I have to simply use somewhere in my program this para element. So what I am going to do is, see here I am using this para element. So what I'm doing is, in the para tag I'm giving the selector id is equal to para. Now id is equal to para 1. This is in the quotation marks. So this para 1 style will be applied to this line, and here the paragraph closes. Now the second paragraph I'm not applying the style sheet. So what is going to happen is, this paragraph will not be affected by the style. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to save this code. As we know that this is id selector, and first I will save it as a text, so that if I want to edit it afterwards I can do it. And secondly, I'm going to save it as a HTML file, and I'm going to see this HTML file how it has come up. So you can see that in the first line, this hello world, it has become red text, and it has become center aligned. And whereas the second paragraph, because no style sheet was added, it is not affected by the style. So this is how we are using the id selector. The second selector is the class selector. So in the class selector, we are using elements with a specific class attribute. So to select elements with a specific class, we write a dot character followed by the name of the class. For example, in the example here, all HTML elements with class is equal to center will be colored in red. The font will be red and it will be center aligned. So the declaration block contains dot center, that is the selector, and in the curly bracket declaration block it contains text align center and color red. So here we can see the code. In the code we can see that in this HTML tag there is a head tag. Inside the head tag there is a style tag, and in the style tag I am declaring the class selector, that is dot center. And dot center, the description box contains block contains text align center and color red. Now how I am applying this particular center element in my HTML code? I am giving h1 and class is equal to center, and this is red center aligned heading, whereas p class is equal to center, this will also be red center aligned and paragraph. So I am using this class selector to two different types of tags. I am applying the class selector to h1 tag, and I am applying it to the paragraph tag. So what is going to happen is, all this paragraph as well as the h1, it is going to be having center alignment with color red. We will see how it works. So I'm going to save it as, first of all I will save it as a class selector text, and secondly I will save it as a web page dot html, and let us see how it has worked out. So you can see that this heading and paragraph both are center aligned, and they are in red color. So we could apply the class selector, that is center, to both heading and paragraph. Next selector is called as grouping selectors. So here we can have the elements with same style definition. For example, here I have grouped the selector, that h1, h2 and p. So here I can actually define the tag with the CSS attribute. So here you can see that this h1, h2 and p, they have given three different definitions. So whenever I am using h1, now h1 I am going to use it as a tag in HTML, but the tag itself, it is defined as a group. So wherever I am going to use h1, it is going to be text align center and red color. Whenever I am going to use h2, it will be text align center with color red. And wherever I am using paragraph, it is going to be text align center and color red. So it will be better to group the selectors to minimize the code. To group selector, we have to separate each selector with a comma. And in the example below, I'm using the text align center and color red description to all the three selectors, and I'm just separating the selectors with a comma. So wherever there is H1, H2 or P, it is going to be text align center with color equal to red. So let us see this code. I'm going to use this code in so here you can see that in the style tag I'm defining H1, H2 and P with text align center and color red, and I'm closing the style tag, and here I'm closing the head tag. In the body tag I'm using all the three H1, H2 and P. So I will save this code. Now this is the grouping selector or group selector with HTML. Now let us see how this has worked out. So here all the H1, H2 and paragraph, all the three are now grouped, and they have been applied the CSS style sheet, that is align center and color red.